everyone. My name is Sam Meggs. I'm a writer here at IDW, and welcome to another Creator Spotlight. Today, I have the absolute pleasure of talking with the great Nick Roche, who is here to talk to us today about Last Bot Standing, his new Transformers book. Hi, Nick.
Hello, Sam.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh man, your energy has infected me already, and in a good way, not like a pandemic-y sort of way. So.
Thank you so much. It's very early here in California, but you're all the way in Ireland, so we are on very different time zones right now.
Yeah. I mean, you're exhausted from just having woken up, and I'm exhausted from just being in the middle of my flipping day. You know, so it's just
absolutely
the existentialism is seeping in all over the place.
Well, I appreciate you joining us here on your nap time. It means a lot. I know how it is.
Don't tell people about my nap time.
Nick, what can you tell us about Transformers Last Bot Standing?
I can tell you that it's out now, but before that, I can tell you that it's kind of like a speculative end to the Transformers universe. I guess it's what, kind of like an Elseworldy type idea, I suppose, but it's basically imagining at the end of the Transformers war, what's happened, so we imagine that there's this lone Cybertronian figure is kind of gone into hiding after the Transformers wars have finished. Transformers wars have like decimated the entire galaxy. They've spread from Cybertron to Earth and to every other planet in between. So at the end of time, there's really not many planets or stars or resources left in the galaxy. What their civilization is left remembers the legends of the Cybertronians, and what they remember isn't good. They muffed everything up for everyone. This survivor, it kind of goes into hiding on this kind of planet. It's kind of like a sort of a kind of steampunky but old west sort of planet, and that's kind of where our story takes up. We join the villagers in this kind of small town, and they're hiding a secret. But and there's a visitor who comes to the planet, and the visitor brings shock waves. That's not a hint. From the past. That would have been great, wouldn't it? He's not in it.
That would have been really smooth. Yeah.
Sorry for getting everyone's hopes up. Shockwaves from the past, and kind of forces this last bot to kind of reveal themselves much against their will. So that's kind of a very long-winded way of kind of setting the story up.
No, I think you did a great job. That was perfect. And so this is different from the main Transformers storyline, correct?
It is. So like Brian Ruckley is like the main Transformers writer on the IDW books and has been since 2019. And he's kind of like one of those lucky Transformer writers that managed to sort of tell a kind of a complete authored sort of saga along with all his kind of amazing artists on the creative team. So this is not definitively that ending, because I'm sure if there was an ending to that story, Brian would be writing that story. But it's an ending that you can kind of, if you squint, it can be the ending to any Transformers kind of continuity you want to, or none of them, or all of them. It's sort of like, and it's kind of, in that respect, it's sort of like you should have read all the most recent books, but you don't need to have read kind of any Transformer story before in some ways. If you kind of have an idea that, well, they're transforming robots, they come from planet Cybertron, they have a war, and that doesn't go too well, and they're in disguise. That's kind of all you need to know about Transformers. And then this is kind of that imaginative, it's kind of, in the comic book kind of trope of like Old Man Logan, or Hulk the End, or the Dark Knight Return, all these really, really famous comics that are written by really, really good writers. That's just me doing a Transformers version of that, basically. I should have just said that. Like in a lot of ways, it's kind of, we're not claiming to be reinventing the wheel, but it's such a fun, that sort of like last ever story, that kind of kind of man with no name Western type kind of one last mission thing. It's both that onto Transformers, and hopefully you get something that you haven't seen in Transformers before, and that's kind of what I'm trying to tell.
That's incredible. Do you have a favorite like moment or panel from issue number 1?
Issue number 1, which is out now.
Yes.
There's so many because it's drawn by EJ Su, and he was the artist who originated the IDW Transformers run back in 2005. I can't believe that he was able to work on this with, and Rebecca Nalty is the colorist, and they've just created this whole atmospheric world. It's kind of got like kind of a elegiac sort of kind of Western vibe, and then when it needs to shock the hell out of you, it really does. And it's kind of one of those shocking bits that I like. There's the first transformation that you see in the comic is a big moment and kind of leads to a sequence of events, and there's a climax to that sequence. It's kind of between that sort of the transformation. I knew what was going on. I wrote it, and then I looked at it, and it was just like, this is thrilling. It really feels like kind of those moments in the early Michael Bay movies where you hadn't seen a kind of a transformation before, or you're not expecting it done in a certain way, and you're just like, oh my flip, this is so I think the transformation, and then there's just a very kind of abrupt beat in an action sequence that kind of follows it. That is just like, even as the writer who knew it was coming was like, I'm sold. I would buy this comic.
That's amazing. You're actually describing my favorite part about writing.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, it's like I write my like dumb little words in a paragraph in like a Word document, and then I send it off, and it comes back like magic.
And I'm not used
which
to that.
is not magic, but like you look at it, and you're like, wow,
But exactly, yeah.
Like, wow.
I don't have that feeling very often, because I usually draw my own stuff, like, so any of the IDW Transformer stuff I've done, I've kind of been the primary artist on it. It's happened a few times where other artists have like, stepped in or done bits of it. But yeah, like it's an incredible feeling. And it kind of gives me as an artist the sense of like, oh, the writers aren't lying to you when they say you made my day. When the art comes in the inbox, totally. And they say, oh man, and you're just like, yeah, you writers, you're full of words, Sometimes they mean their words. It's crazy.
I mean, not me, but sometimes.
No, not you. I mean, that was implied, Sam.
Of course. Nick, is there anything else you want to add about Transformers Last Bot Standing?
No, I think what I would like to say is that I try to. There's a little Stan Lee adage. I write them. I don't pronounce them. It's about how every comic is someone's first comic, and even though this story is kind of the last Transformer story, I've tried to make it kind of accessible to anyone. That you kind of don't need, as I say, you don't need to know too much about it. So it's for all you fans who've been like reading along all the way through it since 2005, since the relaunch in 2019. It's for all you fans who kind of like watched any of the TV shows as a kid or even in recent years, and you're looking for a kind of what would be a logical end to the story. And it's kind of for like lapsed fans as well. It's kind of for like guys of my age who kind of were the target audience in 1984 and kind of were looking for an ending to the saga in some ways. Kind of like endings, shouldn't always be afraid of them. They're because it's not an ending. It's a capstone. The stories are always going to be there. There'll always be a new start, and it's an ending. It's not the ending. But I do think if you like Transformers and you kind of wanted to see what a conclusion could be, please pick up Last Bot Standing. We put our heart and soul into it. I think it's a good comic with a good story. It's got heart and sadness and fun to it, but it's a good comic first that happens to be about Transformers.
Oh, Nick, that was the perfect capstone to this interview. Thank you so much for joining us today, Nick. And don't forget to pick up Transformers Last Bot Standing. Issue number 1 is out now. And thank you for joining us again for this month's IDW Creator Spotlight. We'll see you next month.